Welcome to the Australian Institute of Business Career Under Construction webinar series, which was established to help our MBA community advance their career and employment opportunities through leveraging their MBA credentials, confidence, and networks. For those unfamiliar with AIB, we are Australia's market-leading fully online MBA private higher education provider, boasting a student and alumni network of more than 20,000 from 95 countries. Perhaps more importantly, however, is our infinite game, in which AIB's vision is to transform the lives of everyday working professionals through career-enhancing credentials. My name is Dr. Alicia Stanway, Senior Academic and Industry Engagement Manager here at AIB, and thrilled to be sitting virtually alongside three of our exceptional alumni who currently hold executive positions that will share their story, their reflective insights and strategies to support our current graduated and future students in preparing their and achieving their career goals. Our topic, preparing for the C-suite. To help prepare us for C-level roles, I'd like to introduce our executive panel, Manar Mugammar, the Chief Executive Officer with Shine Talent Group, which is a global talent management agency in North America, graduated in 2023. Craig Chadwick, Director with the Australian Government Department of Health and Aged Care, who graduated in 2022. Chris Ogilvie, Chief Marketing Officer with Jones Radiology, and with a little more tenure behind the MBA, having graduated in 2008. Welcome, crew. Now, we'd like to frame our conversation today into two main segments. Once we hear a bit of a synopsis from each panel member, we'll then move into ideally two segments. We'll move into the aspirational piece, the why of wanting to move into C-level roles, followed by strategies to prepare ourselves for effectively advancing into executive roles for the first time, which is typically into a new organisation or via internal mobility, which is the movement either vertically or laterally to new career opportunities within the same organisation. Now, to those joining us live, thank you. And also thank you for registering and sending in some of your preempted questions for the panel, which we've used to help craft our narrative today. Now, if we don't quite answer the questions that you sent in towards the latter half of the hour, you're welcome to drop it into the Q&A feature that you should be able to see on your screen, which is going to be dutifully attended to by our student and alumni marketing manager, Megan Baker. Let's kick into it. Manar, let's kick off with, I'm going to give you a challenge, a synopsis of your career in 2 minutes.
Oof, that's definitely a challenge. Thank you, Alicia. It's so exciting to be here. A synopsis of my career. Well, we'll start after university. I worked in everything from real estate to law to marketing, digital marketing, and have worked my way up through the ranks in many different diverse business portfolios through entry level all the way to management and finally to senior management. And I currently hold the role of Chief Operating Officer at Shine Talent Group, having come to Shine Talent Group, recruited into Shine Talent Group from another startup, a very small company called Rocket Barn Marketing. Also held the Chief Operating Officer position there from a Director of Operations position. So I've done everything under the sun, primarily in operations and marketing. And it's been one heck of a ride.
Can't wait to hear what you've got in store for us for the next hour. You absolutely have, what I'm noticing about you is that natural affinity or predisposition, if you like, for very much influential leadership. So I love that you've stepped into those roles. But what I really glean from the conversations we've had together is that you earmarked a role or a career that really aligns with your capabilities, your credentials and compensation, and notably with your visible exposure were, I understand, recruited into your current role. So we're going to tap into that a little bit further around. All right, Craig, the floor's yours.
Oh, you're going to regret asking me to do this, Alicia. G'day, everyone. My name's Craig Chadwick. I'm currently the Executive Director with the Commonwealth, with the Government, Department of Health and Aged Care. So I started my career back in health, right from the bottom. Obviously, moved across into various different areas, including whether it's community, local government, back into health, into primary care services, and most recently across peak bodies across various states. Currently, I oversee a national and 2 state programs, which for confidentiality, I can't really speak a great deal to. My career pathway hasn't been linear, probably hasn't been as structured as the norm. Definitely isn't what they say on the brochure in terms of how to achieve and where to get to things. Things haven't come through a natural progression. And I intend to keep it under 2 minutes because last time Alicia asked me this question, I blew it up into about 10. So I'm going to keep it really flat out.
Sounds good. Thanks, Craig. Look, you're leveraging 20 years of experience, and now you've really solidified that industry experience with the business acumen and the confidence through your MBA, right? I want to unpack that a little bit more. And I like that you don't have that non-linear piece because a lot of our audience members don't. So let's tap into that a little bit as well. I'm going to flag that. And we're going to talk a little bit about adversity today because we don't want it to be all unicorns, right? And fairy tales, because leadership isn't that. It's all of it. So brilliant. Chris, over to you, buddy.
Definitely at risk of being the one who doesn't hit 2 minutes, but hey, thanks Team AOB for bringing this together. I'm Chris Ogilvie, husband to my high school sweetheart, father of 2 girls, entrepreneur at heart. Alternated between entrepreneur and intrapreneur over my career, which has also been very non-linear. And I think that, yeah, that'll be a theme captured through today. I haven't had a career end game in mind. I've had sort of no real job title on my mirror when I brush my teeth every morning. I'm driven by growing, learning, and solving problems, and sort of more recently, as I've sort of evolved, inspiring others to do the same, to learn, to grow, and to sort of solve. My path was straight into small business. I sold everything. I sold websites, I sold cars, air conditioners, heaters, barbecues, I think as well. But I made the smart decision to team up with the guys at AIB in 2007, and loved the experience so much, and glutton for punishment, that I went back and I did a law degree after that. And after completing my studies, I sort of sold up all of my small business, and I contacted corporate world and said, I'm free, come and hire me. And after 6 months of no one returning my call, I took a temporary receptionist job, and worked my way from there. The career itch, it started in public sector, and I got to a fancy role of director, and the itch sort of needed scratching. So I jumped into a private sector tech startup, a fitness startup, and for those female members on the call, you may know the tech software company called Sweat. Kayla had seen us. We changed an ebook e-commerce business over 3 or 4 years to becoming one of the largest fitness subscription software companies on the planet. All from Adelaide in South Australia, something I'm really proud of. But that excitement noted, I spent a lot of my time away from my 2 girls on planes and in other continents. And so Jones Radiology was a proud South Australian business that's my petri dish for bringing modern brand thinking and digital innovation into, and so quite happily here. So I don't know if I hit 2 minutes or not, Alicia, but back to you.
You know what? All 3 of you have. So you've nailed it. And that's probably the first takeaway, how to deliver yourself or sell yourself in 2 minutes, right? Because we do that through the recruitment process. So we've got the first tip within the first 10 minutes. Brilliant. Now, Chris, your forte is scalable growth. That's how I interpret your career. And this is really important because you spoke about growth, right? Underpinning who you are. You're a person of growth and continuous learning. And that's important to draw out. And I want to draw on that a little bit further, because you can do that formally through formal higher education or self-directed online learning, right? There's plenty of opportunities to grow out and continuously learn, but it's that commitment that I think a lot of employers and a lot of recruiters are looking for. So I do want to tap into how we can showcase that a little bit more moving forward. So we're going to circle back to that. All right, we've had our synopsis. Let's move into the aspirational piece. I like to start off with the why. So Manar, I might kick off with you. Drawing from your own experience and your motives for your own career advancement, why do we even want a seat at the C-suite table?
Wow, that's the big question. And I think for me, I can definitely speak a little bit more about my why. And my why was always motivated was what is a good fit for my skills, the skills that I had. And I spent a lot of time, a big portion of my career actually suppressing my leadership skills and wanting to fall in or fall in line or follow or make myself a better follower. And having learned that that's really an essential part of leadership is learning how to follow as well. So for me, it was aligning my career goals with skills that I already felt like I had and I could excel or succeed in. But also, I like to be successful and I want to be at the top of the food chain. A part of it is financial motivation, security for my family, wanting to do well and wanting to succeed and set an example for my kids, wanting to make my parents proud, wanting to make my family proud. I think I shared this with you before, Alicia. I come from a family of first generation immigrants. I moved to Canada when I was 14, and academic as well as career success is very important to my parents to make that sacrifice worth it, to make it something, all of the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears that they've poured into their family, kind of a return on that investment for them. Uh, that's a big part of it. But really, ultimately, it was that I had a natural knack for leadership and I had a natural knack for wanting to make things better, faster, more efficient, more profitable. And the best way to do that was at a seat at the table. As a Black woman, I wanted more people like me. I wanted to open doors to change the way the table looked and to see people like myself at that table. Early in my career, that just wasn't even within the realm of possibilities. And now I look around and not only am I at the table, but many others like me are at the table. So it's very exciting.
You're an amazing role model, Manar, and I love the visibility and your voice that you're communicating through LinkedIn. I've been following you for quite some time and really proud of what you have achieved and what you're going to continue to achieve. So thank you for being the voice in that respect. All right, Craig or Chris, do you want to add to that? Why do we
I
even want to?
suppose I'm going to jump in front of Chris because you won't get any time. But no, I'm only joking, mate. I come from a very blue collar background, not naturally gifted academically or anything like that. But so my reasoning behind wanting the seat at the table, it sort of came about inadvertently. It came through more of frustration than anything else. And also that I wanted something better for myself in terms of a career than just a job. And through being around others and a high degree of frustration and also an inquisitive nature, I really wanted to take on leadership roles, but I didn't know how to go about it. So, as I said earlier, it's not a linear process for me. And as I've grown older, at the ripe old age of 53, it's probably only since I turned about 45 have I really been able to define what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it and the reasons why. And given the nature of the role that I'm in now, I'm very much a servant of the community and a community servant. And the way I can influence change across populations is really what drives me.
Leish, thanks. You did give me enough time, Craig. That's all right. Leish, it started for as you climb the mountain, you start with a perception, and then sort of as you get onto whatever that metaphoric mountain is or declining, it changes. For me, it was with responsibility comes accountability, the ability to influence an outcome, right? And so, when you're attending the board meeting to sort of account for your sins or your team's sins, you get the privilege of influence. Having said that, in the role, what I want or what I seek from my team is actually to influence at all layers of the structure, and probably if I could speak to my my 10 years ago career self, it wouldn't be to wait for the title to seek to solve or to seek to influence or seek to be that player in the organisation. because I'm certainly looking for it in this role at all layers. So the ability to solve that problem and the responsibility to do so was a big driver for me.
So Chris, are you saying be influential before you even get the title?
Absolutely. I'd love to take the claim the success of all of my team, doing all of the winning on my behalf. I think that there's no reason. I mean, organisational cultures and appropriateness and all of the necessity elements there, but I think that for the right organisational cultures, those right leaders are looking for influence and solutions at all levels.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love what you said about great opportunity comes great responsibility. You're bang on there. So another tip here we're going to draw out is perhaps assessing motivations versus expectations, particularly if we're stepping into that role for the first time and we're a little bit uncertain about what that experience or what that promise versus reality is really going to look like. So the hot tip here is going to be around, once you've researched the role, do you actually still want it, right? So think about why you want it, and that will help draw out those motivations that we're talking about. So do you like the idea of just being recruited and the status that may come with that? Or like Craig is saying, you want to be of service. Manar, you want to sit within your capability. Chris, you want to help uplift other people, right? Another hot tip. Okay, how do we know if we're ready? Now, some of us have spoken about opportunistic, others are more, it's on the vision board and they're going for it. How do we know? If we're not at executive level yet, how do we know if we're ready?
Alicia, can I flip it? I'll jump in. I won't have a long one for you. I can remember in preparation for my first executive interview, I had been middle manager. I felt, tickets on myself noted, of course, but I sort of felt fairly high performing middle manager, that people would sidestep someone and ask me, if that sort of stuff. And I had the opportunity to interview at an executive role, and I remember instantly feeling not worthy. We'll probably get to that in depth, but I remember going for a bike ride with one of my friends who's an auditor accountant, really exciting guy. And he said to me, he goes, Chris, I audit so many of that job title that I was applying for, and they're heinously underperforming, so many of them. He said, you could underperform like those, don't limit yourself. And I was like, oh, maybe I could be that bad. And so sort of you just lean into it, right?
I love where we draw our inspiration from. Manar.
I love that as well. I think I definitely relate to what Chris just shared, in the sense that there's always that voice that says you're not ready, you're not qualified, you can't do it. And for me, it's using that voice to push you to perform instead of having it tell you not to. It's I'll show you type of vibes. You don't think I can do it? Girl who lives in my head, I'll show you that I can do it. There's that part of it. But I think when I knew I was ready is when I was most comfortable knowing that the buck stops with you. At the C-suite, you are the final decision maker. Your team members will come to you and they will come to you with a problem, and you have to be okay with decisions being yours. Sure, is there consultation? Can you lean on some of your team members who have a lot more depth of knowledge or understanding of the topic at hand? You can, but they're providing you with the information and they are looking to you to make a decision. And inherently, all decisions in our personal and our professional lives are very risky. But when you're at that level, when you are at the C-suite, the decisions you make are not, peanuts. They're not $5 worth of decisions or what have you. Sometimes they're thousands, sometimes they're millions, sometimes they're hundreds of thousands. So it's being comfortable in that discomfort and understanding that I'm the final decision maker, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I think that's really when I knew that this is good, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Manar, you have a powerful mindset, right? And you seem very accountable for what goes on in here and the subsequent actions from that. For people that are feeling stuck, there are people that are sitting here listening right now. They're stuck, whether it's in their current role or they're stuck in their own heads and they can't move past that. So personally, from your perspective, what have you done? And I know this isn't overnight, this is probably a skill that you've built up over time. How do you grow that, this bit, the mindset? And Craig and Chris, you're welcome to jump in.
Knowing that other people struggle with it too is very helpful. Understanding that all we're all humans, talking to other members who have made it, what I considered or defined as someone who has made it in their career or I aspire to be like, understanding that they have the same struggles and they feel the same way. And it's not something that you have at whatever level that you're magically going to solve when you move on to the next step, that it's something that you consistently work on and try to overcome with every decision that you make, with every career move that you make. It's incremental. Nothing happens overnight, like you shared, Alicia. That's so true. Nothing ever happens overnight, but especially with career growth and especially at this level. And knowing that you will make a mistake, you will mess up because you mess up in your current job. You make mistakes now, you make mistakes in your personal life. We're all humans. You do make mistakes, but you know that you gave it your best shot and you do the best that you can. Just be comfortable to make a mistake. It's scary, but it's not that scary, you know. We're not brain surgeons.
And look, I'll add to that if that's okay, Alicia. Apart from the fact when you're the boss, if no one else knows you made a mistake, it never happens. So there's that. So yeah, look, moving forward, and I agree with both Chris and Manar. You know, I suppose, do you ever know you're ready? I don't know. Do you ever know you're in love? Do you ever know you're going to get married, have kids, all those sorts of things? It's life. And geez, that was profound for some ungodly hour of the morning. But from mine, it was a combination of what both Chris and Manar said, but also external criticism and you know, you can't, or, you know, you're not able to do that, or whatever the case may be. And all of those influences culminated into a perfect storm of frustration and doubt and stubbornness and all those sorts of things. But as you experience it, as you take that level of accountability, as you develop your authenticity of who you want to be and what type of leader you want to be, it's really important that that's balanced with some really long, hard looks at yourself and reflectiveness in terms of the decisions you make going forward. And that's how you grow and develop, because you never stop growing, you never stop developing, you never stop that ability. And like Chris said, you know, some people say, oh, you know, you get to the top, so therefore you don't understand. And you go, well, do you ever get to the top? Because everyone's got a boss. Everyone's got someone they report to one way or the other. So, but the most important person you can report to is yourself. That's the person you need to be really accountable for. And that's, you know, people see that, people who you lead, and you know, that's who they see.
Might segue with that, you know, geez, we're our own harshest critics, aren't we? And we, you know, we emphasize our flaws. You know, when going to a panel interview, if you're lucky enough to sort of progress, you know, that's not your responsibility. That's the panel's responsibility. So, you know, your job in that room is to present your best self, to be yourself, and to tell those stories. Don't take on their responsibility. You know, they'll tell you that outcome if that's the view that they form. So just back yourself in that.
We're going to come and unpack those strategies on how we actually do that in a moment, because there's plenty of people that are wanting to know how do they convert that great mindset then into actionable outcomes that are favorable. Can we talk about imposter syndrome a little bit? Now, I know it actually hasn't been mentioned, but it's kind of filtered in the conversation we're having around being one's own critic, etc. So that imposter syndrome, I'm going to mention it because some people misunderstand and misinterpret it. It's the gap between being capable, which you are because you're in the role, and being confident. This is the mindset piece, right? So it's that mindset that we have to shift. And sometimes it's even the high achievers that also experience imposter syndrome, right? And I'm looking for your nods because you guys are high achievers and in your past have potentially felt that imposter syndrome, right? So I want to ask a question around how do we manage it? How do we close that gap between the competence and the confidence?
I'll start. Oh, you can
Oh,
start, Manar.
Craig, take it away.
You sure?
Um, yes, I'm excited to hear what you have
Oh,
to say, please.
I'm an expert in imposter syndrome. I live and breathe this every day. So I suffer greatly from it. live rent-free inside my head, the old imposter syndrome, definitely. And I thought, in all honesty, if I did an MBA, that it would go away. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't go away. But what it does is make you understand yourself, and it makes you understand the signs of imposter syndrome. And it's about how we manage that, and it's about how you use the theoretical knowledge that you've gained and be able to put it in the context and feel like you've got utility around the table, to feel like you can make valued input into discussions, make informed decisions without that background little voice in the back of your head going, oh, I'm not good enough, I don't understand, I'm not smart enough, they're smarter than me, they'll think I'm a fraud, all these sorts of things, because that's just white noise. Does it go away? I think it's different for us all. For me, it's about refocus. It's about looking in the moment and being in the moment, rather than that continual thought, those cycling thoughts that go through your head. There's a special word for it, and I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to pronounce it today. I'm going to pass. And now I'm going to hand across to Manar, because she may have, and no base definitely does, have a different take on things.
Definitely relate to a lot of what you've shared, Craig. It's not something that I feel that I've cured or treated, or something that I feel like that I've overcome somehow. What I've learned is to manage it, and instead of it preventing me from attaining my goals, it motivates me to attain them. So instead of listening to the voice and saying, "Yeah, you can't do it," you're not good enough. Everyone here thinks you're a fake. Everybody's on to you. You're in a meeting and you're like, your whole team is on to you. They know you don't know what you're talking about. If instead of listening to that very toxic voice, I just use it to motivate me. One, it keeps me humble, because if I didn't have my imposter, my head would be so massive. You could not, wouldn't, it couldn't contain the screen. You'd need a bigger screen to contain the size of my head. So I find it a very humbling voice. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me humble. And it drives me instead of stopping me. So when I am having those doubts, when I am having those thoughts, I try to examine, what is the root of that? Why do I feel unprepared to tackle this conversation? What can I do to better prepare for this? What is scary about this? So instead of pushing it away or pushing it down or putting a pause, I go into it. Let's face it. Let's go into it. Let's dive in. Let's unpack it, and let's figure out how I can hone that and use it, almost weaponize it, if you will, to my advantage.
Alicia, they've nailed it. We live in a hyper opinionated society. Anyone can have an opinion and they can post it somewhere and everyone gets to hear about it. And so, that continues to sort of bubble up and impact our feelings. Hearing networks, friend groups, even reading. I loved reading Agassi's book Open, and hearing how he was the world #1 and still hated tennis, hated his approach, couldn't pot, it normalizes it. I love Craig's point, you don't attain a role or a credential or a fancier car and then have it secure. It's a part of you. I think per Manar's point, it keeps you accountable, it keeps you honest, it keeps you, nervous. Like you're nervous if you find out you're presenting to a few hundred people on a webinar. Use it, weaponize it, and lean into it. And recognize that your colleagues, even your adversarial colleagues, if you're across the board table, they're feeling it as well. And so sometimes those sort of reactions that are just, why on earth would a person do something like that? Chances are it's from a place of imposter syndrome as well. So I think understanding and recognizing the role that it plays in our career.
I love that. I love that we're weaponizing our own self-doubts, converting that, really powerful. I love the premise of failing forward. We don't fail. The outcome's not what we desired. We reflect on that. I love the comment around introspection there, Manar, going within, asking the questions, reflecting, unpacking, and then going again with your better foot forward, right? I want to transition a little bit around to preparing, right? Preparing for either it's your first move into the role, whether it's a lateral movement or didn't have success, a bit of adversary, and now you're seeking to move again, right? It's not linear. I want to start off with how we transition, because a lot of the audience are middle to senior managers and they're looking for that next step. how do we transition that piece? And I want to kick off by sharing a really great paper by McKinsey. Their research indicated that middle managers tend to invest a lot in administrative duties. We feel it, right? The work, we're managing up, we're managing down, teams, strategic priorities coming left, right, and center. But when we switch, and Chris, I know this is a secret power of yours, when we switch from the doing to the nurturing the talent, this is where the real reward pays off. So I'm going to share these 5 actions from that McKinsey report, and I'm going to throw to you, Chris. And Megan, Student Alumni Marketing Manager, I'd love for you if you can drop that learning material resource by McKinsey into the Q&A feature so people can tap in and read it in their own time. But briefly, they talk about 5 actions, and those 5 actions are looking at optimizing the organization span. And really, they talk about that as a magic number that a manager can oversee to achieve optimal efficiency versus efficiency. Resetting manager roles, this is that continuous reflection piece, right? To automate and eliminate. Pivot to build capabilities, so upskilling for that strategic impact. Drilling down to the manager experience to elevate their purpose, inclusion, learning and development, right? That's the big piece right there. And then building in accountability mechanisms for continuous improvement. So Chris, what else can we add to helping us transition for that very first time from middle management to executive?
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. I'm really passionate about that jump. I think that the jump into an executive role from a middle or senior manager role is a really critical one, and I sort of frame it as it's quite a dangerous time. That you've come from a role where you were the expert in your field, you deeply, intimately knew, you were probably the best at many of the elements of the responsibilities of your team. And if in an executive role you rely on those skills, you've got an opportunity cost of the role that you're actually in right now. And especially for your first executive appointment, it's pretty daunting. It's pretty lonely. They don't generally come with a handbook on how to executive. And so you'll find yourself pulled into the doing this role that I was pretty good at. It gives me significance and it makes me think I'm doing my job. But I guess my challenge here is that the role, like if you're not lifting your eyes, if you're not looking, I can see the post in there that's distracting me. If you're not looking forward, your opportunity costing your team and the people that are looking to you for guidance, that role, which is critical, and you do shift to challenge your team and your team's teams to level up, to grow. And so rather than taking the shovel and digging the hole, it'd be challenging them on, is that the right way? Or is that the left-handed shovel? Or and sort of guiding them as they sort of evolve. And yep, there'll be a sigmoid curve in that. And to be honest, again, we're not perfect. There's probably some roles, even my current role, that probably I might be the better person to do that. But it's having the patience, the time, the confidence to sort of grow and scale that, because you will need that. Otherwise, you'll become the key person risk, you'll become the bottleneck, and you'll burn yourself out. So you have to lean into it. But yeah, dangerous time, Alicia, I think.
For me, Alicia, it's that again, it's moving that mindset between being the doer into enabling, and it's being to look at relationships to inform performance, because the performance of your teams is the performance of you, and it's reflective of you and the performance of the organisation. So it's that move from the operational mindset into the strategic mindset. And now when you're looking at making that gap, you've got to be prepared to take risks. You've got to be prepared to take informed risks. You've got to have that knowledge base, both operationally and theoretically, because it's not like it is in the brochure. These decisions don't come to you in this magical little idea pop and all that sort of stuff. You need to think on your feet. You need to be able to make balanced, informed, objective decisions. They're not always great. They're not always the most enjoyable thing to do. So anyone who thinks that being executive doesn't come without a cost, there's a cost. There's always a cost. What you can do to insulate yourself, and as Chris said, they can be very isolating roles, because there's an expectation. There's absolutely an expectation. So, and you're not perfect. So the best you can do is equip yourself with the theory, equip yourself with the practical, and try and find a good balance of how you approach both.
I'll add a bit to that as well from my experience here. For me, as a middle manager, I found most of my days were spent filling in the gaps. When you manage a large team, the ball gets dropped, transitioning from one team member to another, the task along the way, something happens, and you get to know everyone's job very to minutia details, and you're filling in those gaps constantly. And as you transition to the C-suite, you're no longer able to do that because you have such a larger piece of the pie that it's just not physically possible for you to do that anymore. For me, it was identifying those superstars, the star performers, the people who I knew I could trust and grow. And it's not this idea that you have to invest in everyone. I really do want to challenge that. You really have to have a knack for identifying talent. So seeing that superstar performer who's not going to fill in the gaps, who's going to do a better job than you are doing, and they're going to make sure there are no gaps to be filled, who can create a team that maybe can perform more autonomously, just kind of having people to rely on and building out your team of star performers is a game changer for an executive.
Yeah. Manar, that talent identification's in your wheelhouse as well, working for a global talent organization. Yeah. All right. Top skill set every executive needs. Is there differentiating capabilities?
Me, it's communications and relationship. That underpins everything I do. Once you have communication and relationships with people, you then build trust, you build collateral, the things work. And as Manar said, you surround yourself by experts. You may not necessarily be the experts, but you identify the experts and you enable them, you empower them, you don't micromanage them, you allow them to do what they do. I see my role as a leader and my role as an executive is to provide the resources for the experts to get the job done. That's what my role is.
If I can build on that, Craig, I actually don't think I've interviewed for an executive position that I've been the expert in the field of the portfolios I was responsible for. Period. So either there's a real shortage of executive talent in Adelaide competing against me, or potentially it's the other skills that you bring to the role that actually carry the weight. I kind of see it. I think there's some international folks on the call and maybe some Canadians. It's like if you're the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, right? And they're three down, right? Like, so your goal is to recognize the talent of the players on the ice, right? And for some of them, it's how that, like as Manar called it, how do you lift those superstars, remove those barriers, and understand the game plan. For some of them, it's actually helping them understand that this team isn't the team for them, and doing it in a respectful and in caring way. There's some real credibility in that. And to your superstar performers, having those conversations to help folks off the side can actually unlock buy-in as well. And so if there's a view, and I'm sure that there are experts appointed to executive roles that are the smartest person on whatever it is they're responsible for, absolutely. But if you think that's the ticket to entry, N equals 1, but happy to sort of disprove that. Absolutely.
I strongly agree with that, Chris. To add for sure, Craig's point about communication, that is a massive, massive important skill. Uh, and I think it's rooted in emotional intelligence. That's a huge part of being an executive. You are dealing with so many different parts of the business and having visibility on so much, and having emotional intelligence really helps you communicate with everyone as meet them where they're at for their communication needs as well. I'll add to that that you do have to be decisive. You are, for many parts of the business, the final decision maker, and your team members do rely on you to make decisions, and hard decisions at times. And you have to have long-term vision as well. You can't, as a middle manager, you're often really concerned with that 2 to 3 months out area where you're making decisions based on 2 to 3 months. To make it to that executive mindset shift, you really have to let that 2 to 3 months go and start thinking a lot more into the 2 to 3 years territory. And that can be a really challenging thing because for me, that was very hard to make that shift. I kept being so concerned about the immediate future that taking a step back and thinking, does it scale? What does this look like in 3 years? Is this the right decision for the business health long term or what have you? I think that is definitely a skill that takes some time and some practice to get used to.
All right, two absolute nuggets I want to tap into. One around leveraging the MBA to build that scalability, that strategic mindset. So I'd like to ask the group here how they, if at all, how they leverage their MBA. I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to come back and unpack the concept of relationships and building people, but also knowing who's building you at the same time. So let's start with, I was trying to circle back in my own time what my first question was. If at all, how did you leverage the MBA? Because I know that Craig and Manar, you've done your MBA in the last 2 years. Chris, there's a little bit more tenure behind yours. So yes, how did we leverage the MBA, if at all, in our current roles?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to kick off. So part of my it's about the credibility in terms of what recruiters see in enabling you to get a foot in the door in a very well, pre-COVID it was a very tight labour market and a very competitive labour market, particularly in regional areas in Australia, which we live, particularly in the small regional areas where the profile of professional positions is like a bit of a gets less and less as you get towards the top. And your reputation and your experience are fantastic, but you also need the credentials going forward, and more the reliance on those credentials to actually deliver. So as much as we've spoken about, the softer skills that come with it, it's also about that theoretical, that academic credibility and really substance and the granular stuff that comes with having a degree like we do or doing it. So being able to leverage that and also being able to read the room, being able to look at the market, being able to assess what the role is, what the realities of the role are in terms of what your skills are, what your experience are, where the gaps may be. They're all aspects of the MBA, which has enabled me to make informed choice and also leverage. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the job and you're going to walk in and they'll go, oh, MBA, yeah. It's not going to happen. It's just a skill set like a sportsman has. You've got to work on it. No one's naturally gifted in this area. And if you are, good luck to you, but you've got to work on it. It's just another thing that adds to your bow, your quiver, not bow, your quiver of skills, and it makes you who you are. And it's about then how you not spin that, that's not the right word, but how you formulate that to present yourself in the best possible light.
To add to that, Craig, for sure, I agree with a lot of what you've shared. For me, the basis of good strategy is research, is knowing how to do adequate market research and understand what the concept of research is. Truthfully, prior to doing my MBA, I had no idea how to research. I was clicking the top 3 Google results and that was adequate. The academic research, the intensity of having to do academic research and to understand how to interpret information and to understand where to find reputable information sources is definitely a huge component of being able to build out a really beefy and healthy strategy. So I think that's a big takeaway for me from my MBA. But I do refer to my books quite often. My operations management textbook is something I have on my desk. So I will say that's definitely a point of reference.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Alicia, I can't think of a single interview I've opened up with Chris Ogleby, AIB class of 2008. Nice to meet you, but there's not a single role that I've been in since this that the learnings haven't cut across 100%. I think it removes the blinkers from you, right? We're conditioned to see whatever is on the news or that paper of whatever factual value. The MBA peels that back. It makes you a critical thinker. The exposure of the degree as it's curated to sort of get you a bit of a buffet, a taste test of all of the roles at that boardroom table. Even in the current role, I can challenge my CFO around some questionable piece of advice he offers in the room, and I do it politely, of course. But I think that it just keeps on giving. And for me, getting exposed to 1 month worth of legal sent me on a 4-year legal journey myself, right? So I couldn't be more supportive of folks leaning into an MBA.
Just one more thing, Alicia, and Chris hit it right on the head. Critical thinking. Absolutely 100% critical thinking.
Put that in lights. I love it. It's going on. It's going on the vision board there, Craig. No, I love it. Can we talk about people around us? So we've spoken about uplifting and building capabilities within our teams. Who's doing it for you guys? So I want to ask this question: do you have mentors? No, we usually have multiple. Is it a coach, executive coach situation? Is it a sponsor within the organization to give us that high octane boost, giving us those stretch assignments? And what role? So what role are the people around us playing?
I can
And
kick this
I'm
one
sure
off.
you've got a support network.
Yes, I use this terminology because I learned it from you, Alicia, which is my personal board of directors or my personal advisory board. Um, I'm definitely not one for coaching. It just doesn't fit with my lifestyle and with the type of work I do. But I do like relying on experts for expert advice. And those are experts that I picked up along my 20 plus year, 20 years working. Some of them are HR experts, some of them are IT experts, some of them are people managers that I've looked up to and admired their management skills or conflict resolution skills or what have you. And I go to each person for something different. I'm not one of the mindset to believe that one person can provide you with all the career guidance that you require. I just don't think that that's within the realm of possibilities. I do think that having that beefed up network and picking up people you admire, look up to along the way has been instrumental for my career. Everything from taking a look at my resume before I applied to a job to, hey, what questions do you think they might ask for this type of role? Or what would I do differently? How would I do this differently? Or I'm having a problem with this specific project or a team member is underperforming. How would you handle it? Outside of just landing the job, my actual day to day career success, a lot of it has to do with that network and relying on experts in their field and relying on people that I look up to and admire.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I've been very fortunate that in the lead up to the MBA, I always sought mentors and wasn't really successful. I learnt more from people I didn't want to be like than I did, but I didn't know how to be that next level, be that person. So, and Alicia's going to get embarrassed. She knows this is coming, so buck her up. Coming into, I was very fortunate enough to have Alicia as someone who I absolutely respect professionally. Personally, she's a pretty good person too, I do believe. Never actually met her in person because, well, there's that. But Alicia's been so fantastic. And it's not that they tell you what to do, they challenge you, they push you, they get you to think. They give you the whack up the side of the head if they need it. They give you the gentle nurturing when it's needed, all the balancing stuff that comes along with being a good mentor. And I hope I can pay that forward at some stage to someone else. I'm also very fortunate that I have a lovely partner who's the most tolerating person on the planet, who also happens to be a CEO and a very highly performing one. And she's the brains of the operation in our particular relationship. So we have that ability to be able to converse and go backwards and forwards and bounce things off each other. And even though we work in totally different areas, the principles are the same. So very fortunate like that. And we also know when not to talk to each other, which is equally as important. And finally, it also gives you the ability to build relationships with, I'm very fortunate I have relationships with CEOs and executives across the nation. And being able to, pick up the phone or have a question and, all these sorts of things. So that, again, it's that trust and that professional collegiate support that comes along with what we do.
Small build from me. I know the time on the shot clock's ticking down, Alicia. I have an executive coach. I thought that they would teach me how to send emails faster and how to be more influential in boardrooms, but they've actually been more of a psychologist to me than anything else, and helping me get outside of my head, per some of the other points that we've sort of spoken about. And also to challenge me to, do you think you're better than me? Why should you be perfect? Why are you aspiring for perfection? You need to be kinder on yourself. So I saw that help in terms of professional mentoring. I went down the pathway of I read fairly broadly, and podcasts and other sort of online learnings, and sort of connect with networks in those particular fields that I'm looking to sort of get exposed to sort of stay across current affairs, etc. in that arena. So.
Chris, okay, are you leveraging on those networks when you actually go for jobs? And let's presume external, oh no, it could be internally or externally. So what are some actual things that we're doing now to prepare for the recruitment process? I no doubt that there's people in the audience that are actually going for jobs right now. Might even have an interview after this. Might be a little bit late in that respect, but what are some
good luck to those interviewing later today. Like preparation is key. Respect the role, respect the organisation, respect the panel. I know that can be hard if you're needing to interview for many roles. That preparation can be exhausting at times. In preparation for this role here, I ultimately, after a recruitment process, had to present to the board of all of the owners. There was 29 doctors in a room, and I'm printing flashcards, I'm looking at photos, I'm remembering names, and so in the interview process, I can sort of thanks Dr. Stanway, etc. when questions are asked. The one tidbit for those interviewing later today is I sort of, and I share this with my colleagues, that I sort of call it the bullseye model when you're being asked questions from a panel, is that, whatever the question is, how do you deal with competing deadlines, etc., is sort of the outer circle is acknowledge the question, demonstrate that you understand competing deadlines and the tension and the around that particular issue that the panel is asking you. The second layer of it is find an example of when you've done it previously in your career. So in my former role at Sweat, we had tensions between Apple release cycles and etc. So demonstrate that you've got reps in that particular problem. And then the bullseye is being able to directly apply it to the role that you're applying for. So at Jones Radiology, I can understand that we would have issues around this and that, and those tensions would apply, and here's how I would approach it. So if there's one hopefully relevant piece to take out of it is, that bullseye method is something that I sort of use still to this day. But now I've all told you, you might be on the panel and you'll recognise me using it, so it might have less value, but that's something to take away.
Love that. I'm definitely going to be utilizing that in the future, the bullseye. It's a nice one. I'll add to that interviewing is like any other skill. You just have to practice. It's like, the first day you go and lift weights, you're not going to be able to lift the 300-pound weight. But through practice and keep doing it, just keep doing it, either with friends, with family, with people that you trust and respect. Practice, practice, practice. That's genuinely the best advice I can give you. The only reason that I'd ever be good in an interview is because I've had so many and I've been in so many different jobs. So I would say talking about ourselves is awkward and uncomfortable on the best of conditions. When you introduce the very tense environment that an interview feels like, it's definitely even more awkward and uncomfortable. So just practice talking about yourself.
Any tangible tips to add there, Craig? I hear it a lot from people, particularly within the MBA space, around not feeling comfortable selling themselves because they don't like to talk about themselves. So we're all going to go home today and practice our 2-minute synopsis, yeah? Craig?
Yeah. I teach myself all the time, not about myself, but to myself. Why am I doing this? Why'd that happen? No, for me, it's about being authentic. And I know a lot of people prescribe to the fake it until you make it. Well, I don't. It's about being authentic. It's about being truthful. It's about saying, I don't know, but I'm really keen. I think, but I do know this. And it's about putting context. And you've really got to do your research. You've really got to come prepared. You've got to present yourself in a way which make you appealing to someone sitting across the other side of the desk, and have the conversation. Obviously, different interview environments are different, but that's where the preparedness comes in. And at the end of the day, follow your gut and take a leap of faith. Trust yourself.
The last small build before you jump in, Alicia, would be one of the best ways I've found to sort of to normalise the interview panel process and to truly deeply understand it is actually sit on the other side of the desk. So nominate to be on a recruitment panel for whatever level of seniority of role. When you're asking those questions to the applicant and seeing their nerves and seeing the face go all red, and when they're answering a question and going off in that direction, but you really want them over there, and you ask them, oh, what about this though? And I think it's a beautiful insight. Certainly one that opened my eyes a lot, and I sort of wondered, was I that applicant going over there as well? But yeah.
All right, team, we're drawing to a close. Any burning insights that you want to share that have not been put on the table yet?
For me, it's about a lot of people think you have to be smart to do an MBA. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to do the reading. You've got to do the work. You can't coast through. It's a very different environment, and what you go into and what you get out the end is so worth it. It is absolutely 100% worth it. The connections you make, the self-learning, the theoretical learning, it all comes in this one bundle. And I know this is a shameless plug, but for me, I looked at many institutions about how to study, and my better half studied with a different institution. She lasted one semester and said, no, and she's already got 2 degrees or 3 degrees. What she's doing me got me buggered because she's smart. But anyway, moving forward, it's about.
On the wall, Craig, or are they yours, mate?
They're mine, mate. I've just put them up. Yep, they're mine. I've got my Charlie Curnow bobblehead sitting next to him. Anyway, moving on. It's so worth it. It is so worth it. But you need to be disciplined. You need to put in the work. And if you put in the work, it's like anything. You will see the results in the end. And it's not about the marks. It's about the learning that you get.
I'll quickly add to that. Totally agree, Craig, 100%. And just a friendly reminder to everyone who's pursuing an MBA after having been out of school for a long time, you are not that person who was in university anymore. You have learned so much, you have grown so much. So if you feel like your university experience was traumatic, for the lack of a better word, or maybe you didn't have the academic acumen to perform at that time in your life, remember that you have a breadth of experience under your wings now, and you are able to do a lot more. So don't let your experience in university or in high school or whenever your last academic experience was scare you away from doing an MBA, or feel like I'm just not academically minded, or I'm not meant for reading or memorizing. This is not about memorizing. It's not about, regurgitating information in the way that many of us have experienced in the academic system. This is a way about retaining knowledge and actually taking that information and utilizing it in the workplace. So I definitely agree with Craig. The time is now.
Any final pearls there, Chris? You've given us plenty. Don't feel you have to.
Yeah, you build the muscle. It's just building the muscle. Like, you're always learning. You're consistently learning. You're going to get new techniques and capabilities to continue learning in whatever role and sector and discipline you apply yourself to. So that's what you get to take with you forever.
Manar, Chris, Craig, you've been a stellar executive panel. Thank you for gifting us your insights to the AIB community. Part of being at senior level is that we respect people's time, so we're going to finish on time. Now, as we conclude our webinar, remember that the journey to the C-suite, it's about alignment, what I'm grabbing from here. It's alignment of mindset, capabilities, finding where you'll thrive and add best value for your organization. We spoke a lot around fit. So it's beginning with that right mindset, embracing challenges, asking for and then accepting those stretch assignments to push you out of your comfort zone, because that's where the true growth occurs. So preparation is then key. We're continuously honing our skills, expanding that knowledge base, staying ahead of those industry trends. We do really tap onto that. That'll all set us apart. Now, notice how you notice I'm using the word us because I'm manifesting, right? We're going to surround ourselves with high value people that push us to believe in our unlimited potential, because they will be the guiding compass and the support. But above all, recognize that regardless of your starting point, you can reach executive leadership if that is the path you choose. So the path to the C-suite is paved with resilience, ambition, and unwavering commitment to growth. Believe in yourself, take bold steps. Remember that the door to the C-suite is open to those who are prepared to walk through. Thank you for joining us, and here's to your future success. Bye, everyone.